Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Government remains committed to ensuring that COVID-19 vaccines are available and accessible to the entire population. At the start of the national vaccination campaign, 25,000 doses were gifted to St. Lucia from India, as well as donations from sister islands. The National Immunization Manager says vaccines continue to be procured.
We know of the COVAX facility. For that mechanism, St. Lucia, of course, has received two batches of vaccines amounting to 50,400 doses out of the allocated 74,400 doses from the further COVAX facility. We expect the third batch of vaccines, which is 24,000 doses, sometime in early June, either the first or the second week of June. The government of St. Lucia also has procured 100,000 doses of vaccines just to ensure that vaccines is available and is accessible. And that shipment of vaccine we expect very soon.
Shabate says the aim is to get 70% of the population fully vaccinated in the next 4 months.
It is very important for us to return to some level of normalcy. And of course, it can't just happen this week. We know that public measures such as wearing our masks, keeping our distance, our physical distance, ensuring that we sanitize, this alone is not enough. And it is important that the majority of our population has this level of protection, get vaccinated, have that level of protection that will take us to a point where we can regain some level of normalcy in our lives.
As of the 15th of May 2021, a total of 26,417 individuals have received the first dose of the vaccine and 16,889 individuals have received the second dose of the vaccine. New COVID-19 variants are putting a twist on what had been forecasted for COVID-19 across the globe. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George says the impact on countries managing these new and concerning variants is a cause for discomfort for local officials, with neighboring Martinique managing such a crisis.
Multiple variants of the virus that causes COVID-19 are circulating globally and are being classified as variants of interest, variants of concern, and variants of high consequence. Variants of concern, however, have caught the attention of local officials and what it could mean if they reach St. Lucia's shores. According to the Center for Disease Control, a variant of concern is identified as a variant for which there is evidence of an increased transmissibility, more severe disease, significant reduction in neutralization by antibodies generated during previous infections or vaccinations, reduced effectiveness of treatments or vaccines, or diagnostic defective failures. The Chief Medical Officer spoke on the implications of such to the island at a press conference on Tuesday.
The main variants that we note, the B117, which is the British variant, the B1351, which is the South African variant, and the P1, which is the Brazilian variant. These are the three main variants of concern. WHO has just recently added on the Indian variant, as you note what is happening in India. For us in St. Lucia and our implications, I will look to the AstraZeneca vaccine. It is very effective against the British variant, which is the variant which we have identified circulating in St. Lucia. And also for the Brazilian variant is still expected to work. In terms of the South African variant, it is not sure how effective it will be. And we are waiting on data to see how effective it is.
Dr. Belmar-George says because of this, St. Lucia needs to maintain the public health measures.
The impact on countries which are managing variants, as we see in Trinidad, as we see closer to home in Martinique, the impact that it has on those populations we were managing one variant with our third wave in January, and we saw the difference in terms of the number of cases and also the number of COVID-related deaths. In terms of the countries which are more likely to affect us, our very close neighbor Martinique, they're managing three different variants of concern, the UK, South African, and the Brazilian variant, and you're aware that they're now managing a major outbreak within their system. Our other countries, which we rely on tourism and our returning nationals, is the UK, Canada, and the US. They're also managing quite a few variants.
Rigorous and increased compliance with public health mitigation strategies, such as vaccination, physical distancing, use of masks, hand hygiene, and isolation and quarantine, are essential to limit the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19 and protect public health. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
U.S. President Joe Biden said on Monday that if all goes according to plan, the United States will soon send 80 million doses of COVID vaccines to help countries beleaguered by the coronavirus. World leaders, experts, and advocates warn much more is needed to stop the virus from running rampant in much of the world, which gives it time to mutate and possibly evolve until it can evade vaccines. Activists, too, have joined the cohort of voices calling on the Biden administration to move boldly. Longtime AIDS activist Greg Gonzalez said donating 80 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines without a plan to scale up production worldwide is like putting a Band-Aid on a machete wound. President Joe Biden said the 80 million doses were 5 times more than any other nation had donated and are just the next step in America's efforts to supply more vaccines for the world. The number of doses needed to vaccinate 70% of the world's population is a staggering 11 billion. And 11 billion may be a conservative estimate because the global need for vaccines could prove far greater if virus variants require booster shots. So far, only 1.7 billion vaccines have been produced. The National Council on Public Transportation is calling for more patrols by law enforcement officers at various hotspots in the city. This in light of recent robberies targeting students. Meanwhile, the City Police Unit has promised an effective response to ensure that there are fewer incidents of robbery, theft, and assault in the city.
Recently, a student was robbed and physically assaulted while attempting to get a bus to school. This incident incited calls for increased police presence at various bus routes around the city of Castries. The president of the St. Lucia National Council on Public Transportation, Godfrey Ferdinand, says the incident was very unfortunate and the calls for law enforcement officials to patrol not just the known hotspots for crimes but all bus stops are warranted.
Obviously, we would want more police presence, and we have been assured that the police would increase the presence. Sometime last year before, I should say, there were instances where students from the St. Joseph Convent and even Entrepreneur School were being mugged. And when the police started doing the patrol, that was minimized. So we are hoping with this being aid and consultation with the police and the Ministry of Transport as well as with the association, that the patrol would increase and that the students would be more alert.
In a recent interview with Hot 7 TV, Superintendent of Police and Officer in Charge of Northern Division, Elvis Thomas, indicated that since the reopening of schools, officers have indeed increased their patrols within the city. The Chief of City Police, Brian Jawair, said City Police will be doing their part.
We have already started that. We are working with the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, and we do have persons on the road. We know the areas what has been targeted. We know that when that happens, we have persons from the CID who is on the ground also with our people who is using that.
Drivers too have been victims of muggings and thefts over the years. Ferdinand says, in addition to the police assistance, drivers and passengers alike need to take personal responsibility for themselves and their property.
We've been asking that operators, those that can qualify for a legal firearm should get a legal firearm, We are also asking them to do self-defense courses, always work as a group when they can, be aware of their surrounding. And that's the nature or the times that we are living in. We are living in a society where things are not the same as before. So we need to enhance our own self. I've made suggestion of individuals getting their own cameras in their vehicles. It's your business. Invest in it so that you are aware. If there are more cameras on some of the vehicles, we can always play back the tape and maybe we can pick up some of the individuals that are doing these things.
He says the transportation sector is always willing to collaborate and work towards the safety of all. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
MP for Castries South East Guy Joseph is not letting up on his request for opposition leader Philip J. Pierre to release the so-called recordings of him attacking candidate Joachim Henry. Joseph says that anything he has stated or asked of the SLP candidate can be substantiated. He went further to say that claims of abusive campaigning are simply untrue.
So, Ernest Healy, I want you to show me one thing that is mudslinging, because everything I have said can be substantiated by evidence. I have asked about Ada Inc. I have asked about the minister's account. I have asked about the events that transpired.
Joseph said he found it rather ironic that the SLP would accuse him of abusive campaigning when he says the party does the exact thing during parliamentary proceedings.
I've been called Chasney's Poodle. I've been called T-Boy. I've been called Coolie Man. What is it that's not abusive? So all of a sudden, is Guy that is the abuser? So what does it say? St. Lucia Labour Party is deeply disturbed by the unwarranted verbal abuse and untruths being leveled towards candidate and his family, especially during this time as they mourn. I don't even want to go to that part of it.
Yeah.
Where is what Guy Joseph has said? So because you all say to yourselves that Guy Joseph said something, that makes it that Guy Joseph said.
That was Castries South East MP Guy Joseph on his Monday night program. This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more news coming up after the break.